to my Honest Conversations. I'm Kristina Mand-Lakhiani. I'm co-founder of Mindvalley. And today I have a wonderful guest, Rhea Lalla.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm a little talkative, but I'll give you the floor very soon and you'll get to talk. But for those who are joining, Rhea is actually a conscious parenting expert, I would say, right? You're, first of all, you're an entrepreneur, a parent, an author, a speaker, also a coach, and you've done a lot of things, and your main expertise is parenting. And to go into our conversation, I want to ask a little bit maybe a heavy question for the beginning. Rhea, how was your everyday life making us humans like a better species, or making this world a better world?
Yeah, that is a heavy question. My everyday life. So I live in the world of emotions. That is the part that I'm most fascinated by. I want to understand, why do I feel and do the things I do? I'm deeply, deeply interested in why somebody else feels and does the things they do. It's a fetish of mine. Like I think about it all the time. And I've thought about it since we were kids, because my father raised us in a particular way to kind of anchor us in that type of thinking. So when you get really, really curious about, why am I doing something that I'm doing, and how is my behavior affecting others, and you're thinking about the relationship dynamic, what I care about is, how do two people, whether it's a parent and a child, a husband and a wife, a friendship, what's holding them back from connection? And so in my everyday life, because I'm observing, asking questions, observing myself, because the deeper I go into myself, the more I can even understand another human being. All that work that I'm doing inside allows me to, whether it's through coaching or my programs or interactions that I have with anybody, a friend, my children, it's helping me deepen my understanding of them. How? Because I'm trying to understand me. I'm going to give you an example. If I've never felt jealousy, right? If I've never felt the emotion of jealousy, how can I help my child when they come with their deep jealousy because, I don't know, somebody can do a cartwheel and they can't, or whatever it might be? The more I'm able to understand that, oh, this is what I'm feeling. This is okay. This is how I move through it. This is where it might have rooted itself from, the more I'm able to support somebody else. So everything in life contributes to my aliveness and my understanding of the world, which helps me support other people in whatever place in their life they're feeling disconnected from another human being. And my own theory about life is that we're here for, in this form at least, for a certain amount of time. And it's very short, at least in this form. And I want to make sure that the relationships that I create with others I'm kind of greedy. And I'm kind of greedy for other people too. I want them to be epic. Why have an okay friendship when you can have a magnificent friendship? Why have an okay relationship with your kid when you can optimize to try and make it amazing? Go for bust, be greedy. And so I want to figure out those things. So that's I'm into that. I really jones over that. And I'm interested in seeing that happen for people.
You said that you want to have epic relationships rather than having an okay relationship, be it with your child, be it with your partner, with your friend, whoever. Because I know that you are mostly known for your work with children, but you also are an expert in relationships in general. Yeah. So what is the purpose of that? Is it just to enjoy life better, or do you think there is a deeper problem in the fact that we are okay with just okay relationships, that we are not that we as a human species, we actually maybe don't work in our relationships enough, don't maybe understand them enough?
Yeah, I don't think that as a species, as a human, part of the human species, we are preconditioned to be in a relationship. Why we don't go after it with a hunger to try and figure it out is, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is fear. One is fear that, what if I try for something and then I don't get it? Sometimes it's imagination. Sometimes it's, do I dare to dream and believe that I could have a relationship that's not okay, that this actually feeds my soul and it feels symbiotic and it's rich and growing and everyone's developing? Is that possible? So imagination. And, when we think about even imagination, how did that even whether I think like Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha, where one of my favorite heroes of all time, to believe in the impossible, where did those beliefs even begin? It could have even began in my childhood. How much did my parents live in the realm of imagination and possibility? How much of my parents' belief systems were fixed mindset or growth mindset? Fixed, like, this is what life is, this is how it is, don't expect too much. You got all the beliefs that we have that get create our biases or beliefs and our blind spots. But how do you break free of that now, even if that did exist, and now get really into a growth mindset of what's possible and what's capable? The other piece of it is, I don't believe that people don't want to do the work. Mm-hmm. I don't actually believe that. I believe that everyone is on a journey. And in that journey, they may have opportunities. It's kind of like they meet somebody, or they read something, or they attend a seminar, and a seed gets planted. And just like in marketing, marketers, like famous online marketers, know that you have to hear something 7 times before you go. Like, you see the billboard on the side of the highway selling cake, and you have to see that 7 times before you go, I want to go and buy McCain's cake. It's terrible cake, but it has to be 7 times. So sometimes somebody, they're not rejecting their growth and expansion. It's just that the people and the opportunities haven't come about such that that seed can get planted in a mind that maybe and a heart that might feel a little bit contracted based on their upbringing, right? So I think a lot of it also is rooted in what the earliest experiences of children are in the context of their family system and the family dynamic between the two caregivers, the two people, assuming both parents are there. The people that were meant to love them the most in the world, if they're not responsive and attuned to the cues and the nuanced, subtle feelings that this child is having, the jealousy, the insecurity, the loneliness, the anger at them for even telling them what to do, because here's this autonomous child going, don't tell me, parents, what to do. I want to be my own person. And now they realize that the parent, not because they're going, I want to keep this from my child, they're unconscious themselves. So all of a sudden, the child creates this worldview. They go, oh, the cavalry isn't coming. Nobody's coming to help me navigate this bewildering, confusing, big emotion. And what happens is they go, I'd rather, I'm going to separate from the emotion, not feel it as much, so that I can just carry on. So this is where you get people that become workaholics, people that dive into their work, but they forget about the relationship, where people are unattuned to the feelings and emotions of other people. They have to first become connected to their own feelings and emotions. And it's a very challenging thing to ask somebody, I can't just tell somebody, be connected to your own feelings and emotions. They kind of go, oh, I thought I was, or how do you do that? And so you can't give something to somebody else if you haven't started to develop it in yourself. So if you didn't grow up with parents that talked about feelings, worked with you to help navigate the feelings, then I would say, which I have clients like that all the time, the work is to help them learn how to feel again, because that part of them has been shut down. And how do you teach someone to feel again? Start in small ways. You may not be able to instantly connect with your wife or your husband or your child, but just notice when you feel frustrated that somebody bought you a salad and it didn't come the way you wanted without nuts. And then noticing, wait a second, I have a feeling about that. And
Rhea, I want to definitely spend a little more time talking about understanding your emotions and working with them, because I think this is a big thing and a big and interesting topic. But I want to ask a slightly question, step a little back and ask another question. So you say that children grow up not knowing how to deal with their emotions, partially because parents maybe are disconnected or are not attuned to them, but also there is a belief that we parents can't teach children anything in lectures, but we teach them by our examples. So isn't it a little bit of this wicked cycle where parents don't know how to deal with their emotions, and obviously children don't have a healthy example? So how do we break it? Where do we start? Is it us parents learning to teach our children later properly, or is it us grown-ups just working on ourselves and letting our children be and working on our relationships? How do we start breaking it, this
We
whole
start
cycle of
reframe? Yeah, great question. We start with reframing why the kids are here. We often think that I'm here to help the child develop, to teach them to grow. The child is here so that I can get a window into my neuroses, my pathology, all of my crazies will get triggered by this child and my partner. And this is exactly where I'm meant to be, is to have all my crazies get triggered. Because when I start, so I can become blind to them, or I can stop and go, why is it that I'm not having the relationship that I want? Why is it that the child is constantly pushing back and we're in a power struggle? I could blame the child. That's the easy route. Blame the child.
And try to fix it.
Or try to fix it. The other one is, one of my favorite questions ever is whenever and I've noticed this myself, I've noticed that I'm getting triggered at my children. It could be something like they're not going to bed and they never want to go to bed. They want to just be like vampires and stay up all night. And I go, as I'm getting triggered after we've spent time together, we've downloaded the day, they shared all the paper cuts in their heart. And now I'm thinking that still wasn't enough. They still want to stay up longer. My question, as I'm wanting to project anger onto them, is what is it about me that's creating this? That is a question that we got to summon our courage, sometimes from our baby toe, because it's hard. I don't like to use the word hard. It's challenging to have the mirror in front of us, especially if we're putting the mirror in front of us and going, what is it about me that created all of this? Created the disconnection, created the separation, created the power struggle. What if it were me that did that? Even if you have all the argument as to why that isn't true, it's worth it to stay in that space for a minute or two to explore it. Because when you start exploring that, then you can get what I believe is what is part of emotional intelligence, is to become self-aware. What are those things, innocuous, subtle, nuanced things that I'm doing that's keeping my child responding like this? And most of what we do as humans are in our blind spots. I mean, what is a blind spot? A blind spot is a place that we can't see. So it's kind of like, imagine you're driving a car. The car has a blind spot, right? So how do you see what's in your blind spot if you're driving a car? What do you use?
Turn your head.
You can turn your head. Yes, good. Or you use the mirrors, right? The side mirror or the back, the rear view mirror. So having sacred mirrors in your life, those are your closest friends. Those are your children. Those are your partner. Those are the people that you feel have your back, but will be honest with you, because kids will be honest if you allow them to feel safe. And they will tell you things that sometimes will drive right to the center of your heart. And you'll be like, I don't want to ask that. I don't want to ask this question. I don't want to ask, what am I doing that is holding love at bay? Or maybe, is there anything that mommy's doing that is hurting you and has you feel frustrated? If a child feels safe, they will tumble out daily when you create that space for them to tell you what's paining their heart. And so now I can either go, no, I responded that way because you did this. That's option one, which is ego and righteousness. Or we go, let me believe for one moment that that's true. So for example, if my friend were to say, Rhea, I notice you interrupt a lot. Okay. I could think to myself, actually, no, I try to be like, feel fair and a sense of equanimity when we're speaking. Or I could go, she says that I interrupt, or I could try and think about, why would she say that? Maybe she's just trying to be mean to me. That's another option, right? She's just trying to see things that aren't there to bring me down. Okay. Or all of those, and one of them being, maybe there's some truth that I interrupt. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now, because I'm interested in my growth, I'm going to have laser beam focus to track it. And guess what? Even my tracking might be biased. So now I'm going to ask maybe my husband or the kids, hey, I'm really working on myself. I notice that sometimes I might be interrupting. What's your experience? Do you find I interrupt you? And then they go, they want to protect mommy. Husband wants to protect wife. No, wife, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. But I go, no, you don't understand. this is something that I really want to understand, because if I'm doing it, it's going to feel like I'm more important than you. And I don't want to live my life like that. So I create the safe space, and then I get the feedback, and then they go, yes, mommy, I feel like you interrupt me at times. And then I go, thank you. Like, seriously, authentically, thank you. And then I don't just take that and file it under what Rhea has to work on. I go, roll up my sleeves and go, what game do I want to play in this lifetime? The game I want to play is epic. Remember, we started off the conversation with epic. So I can either file it under relationship issues or what Rhea has to work on, or I go, I want to put this right here at the front of my forehead. And every day, bring my mind to this behavior. And then on top of that, then I want to do a check-in. After day one of me trying and making an effort to not interrupt, I want to check in with the kids and go, hey, today I was trying to be mindful about a relationship. How'd I do? And then the child goes, yeah, it was a good day. And I get to square my shoulders, puff out my chest and go, all right. And then I'm going to do it the next day, because I have to keep doing it till the habit, and, till the habit is formed. And then eventually I will live my way into a new reality, into a new experience with the kids or my friends at large. Yeah.
Rhea, I also have this tradition of turning things like, the irritating things into a mirror. So if and it doesn't necessarily have to be a child or a partner. It can be literally like me listening to a speaker on stage and being triggered by something and just asking, what is it in me that gets triggered? Yeah. But isn't it also a little bit of a slippery slope? Because that also keeps us so much in the head and so much analyzing and turning over things about ourselves. Is there like any rule how not to go too far with that kind of behavior? Because literally we do get so many emotions throughout the days. If we start introspecting on everything which is unpleasant, it might really take us a little too far, a little too deep, and maybe into depression.
It becomes too cerebral.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that when we notice somebody on stage, let's say, and they're speaking in a way or doing something that we find annoying or irritating, the more we could run the story, okay, I feel this person is doing X, and if they only just stopped doing X, then I wouldn't feel annoyed. But again, that's a cognitive thing that's happening. And then we're just running a loop, thinking. And then we ask the question, what is it about me that's feeling triggered? Is there something that they're saying that's triggering an insecurity in me? Okay, I get it. We keep tracing it back. But the important piece of this is not to be here while you're thinking about it, is to drop down into your heart to feel it. So this is now what I call a somatic experiencing exercise. You're not trying to make X, Y, and Z of it. You're dropping into, where am I feeling the feeling? I actually believe that the head only exists. It's great for solving quadratic equations and philosophizing, but the head only exists to relay what the body is trying to convey. So the real epiphanies lie in the body. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. When you were watching on stage and you get triggered, or let's say angry, okay? And by the way, I mean, behind anger is usually fear or sadness, okay? That's the primary feeling. But let's just go with anger, a secondary emotion. If I were to interview you and I say, why are you angry, Kristina? You would say, well, because the speaker did X, Y, and Z, okay? And I don't like X, Y, and Z. And I go, okay, so you tell me the whole story and whatever meaning you made from that. That's what's happened in your head. Now, if I said, okay, so now I'm a neurosurgeon and I crack open your head. Okay, we're doing a little surgery here. Could I find that in this quadrant of your brain, that's where anger is living? Anger, no. All that's living in our mind is the story and the meaning that we're making about the behavior. So for everyone that's listening in, there's all kinds of behaviors that we see that's bewildering and confusing and frustrating, and we get judgy and we get frustrated. All that's really happening in our mind is a story. A thought has come up and it's creating some story, and we create meaning from that story. But that's not where the feeling is. I can't crack open your brain if I was a doctor and go, aha, in this quadrant is anger. The anger is in your physiology. The anger is your heart rate went up, your hand clenched, the blood flowed to your chest and your feet and your hands for fight or flight. you're feeling your cortisol levels are up. Adrenaline might be pumped into your system. If I was a doctor, I would be looking at your physiology and your biochemistry to go, aha, you have the physiology of anger. So if we want to work through a feeling that we're having, it's never here where we get tied ourselves up into knots. And then we mentally ruminate. That, you're right, is very exhausting and debilitating and keeps us what the world has always wanted us to be, which is in our head. By the way, I just need to make a side note. The reason why we're so predisposed to being in our head, besides the fact that schools spend a lot of time on STEM, that we learn to read from left to right, is because back when we were kids, when we felt jealousy because one kid could do a roly-poly and we couldn't, when we felt nervous and insecure and lonely, nobody came to help us make sense of that. Yeah. So the mind said, don't you go into your body. Going into your body is to feel terrified. I mean, imagine a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old feeling jealous. As a grown woman, if we felt jealous, it feels uncomfortable, far more a child. So when nobody helps us make sense that it's jealousy that you're feeling, it's perfectly normal. People feel it. There's no bad or wrong or bad feelings. This is how we can move through it and actually feel it. Then the child has a ticket out of Dodge. Then they can go through their life and go, oh, I have a feeling, and they will have this feeling, by the way, for their whole lifetime. Loneliness, insecurity, anger, frustration. My job as a parent is not to ignore it and have the child feel alone, and is not to try and have them not feel it. I don't want my child to feel, this is going to shock some of your listeners, but I don't want my child to feel joy all the time. Says, parenting expert. I don't. I've learned more from a heartache through a relationship about who I am, what I love, what I'll stand for, what a boundary is, than I have from my joy. What has winning and joy ever taught me as much as heartbreak? So my job as a parent is to allow the child to experience that without trying to get them out of it. And the way we do that is to not let that child stay in their head with their feeling. Move it from our head and allow them to somatically experience the feeling. Because if we did that with the lady on the stage or the man on stage, we went into our body, we'd actually get into an epiphany and a jewel without feeling exhausted. We'd actually feel, where's this feeling in my body? And then when you stay without running with a feeling, there is always some gem or epiphany or jewel at the end of that tether. But most people never stay.
What you're saying is that you actually get your lesson out of your experience, not by thinking about that experience, but by feeling that experience in your body.
Yes. It's the feel.
I have to ask this question because I'm with you on that, because I believe that the worst thing that parents can do for children is to try to grow them into happy people, because that's a slippery slope too. But you know what I want to ask? We live in an environment of sorry for that word, but toxic positivity, where we are expected to be joyful and happy and positive. And to a great degree, we expect that from our children. And partially it is understandable, because as a mother, when my child is sad, I do feel worried for the child. So of course I would prefer my child to be in a good mood. So obviously when the child is sad, I want to do something to fix the bad mood. But how do we marry this social expectation of us being always positive and good, and even the civil communication between people is, how are you doing? You're supposed to say, I'm okay, or I'm fine, or I'm well. The worst answer is, I'm okay. If you say the truth, people will think, wow, you're weird, and probably not want to hang around you. So how do we balance between the social expectation of being good and being fine and being okay with the natural thing that children grow through spectrum of all sorts of emotions, including emotions that we don't like, such as rage, anger, maybe even unfair feelings, which sometimes children are not always fair. So how do we balance these two things?
Well, we first have to use your words, start embracing the weirdness. Okay. And this is where we tap into authenticity. That we have to see behind the show that we're all enjoying, the puppet show. We have to see all the marionetters pulling all the strings, right? And notice that culture and belief systems and books and whatever bag of tricks you've been sold on, we need to be smile for the picture. You know, like how many times we have pictures of our kids crying or in the depths of their despair? We don't.
Oh my
We
God,
do.
couldn't
Can
believe
you
it.
just smile for this picture so we can show we're happy on vacation?
Where it's even worse, because there's few times I've put pictures of my children like serious or sad. I would actually get personal messages saying like, "Why are your children sad? I can see sadness. Like, what's wrong? What's going on?" And once I stupidly joked saying like, "Yeah, they're just unhappy people," and they were like.
So this is a cultural thing, right?
You are
You're
not
right.
even allowed to show that you are sometimes not in the good mood.
Yeah, you're right. This is a cultural thing that we now have to question and observe, most importantly, how this is manifesting and playing out in our own lives.
But we are uncomfortable about people who are not happy, aren't we?
No,
It's
we're not.
scary.
Well, generally, we're not comfortable because we haven't gone down the rabbit hole of our own feelings. Remember, the deeper I'm willing to go with my feelings, with my despair, with my heartbreak, the more I can go, oh, that's what's happening. Most of the times people feel afraid because no one was able to help support them through their heartbreak. And it felt bewildering and confusing. They just felt like, I didn't like that feeling when I was a kid. Now they're grown up. I don't like this feeling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do everything to have my children not feel that feeling. And that is not the role of mother or father or caregiver. The role of mother and father is to recognize that every feeling has a dignity and an intelligence. And it's going to come because you're not going to be with that child from now until kingdom come. They're going to go out and have a life of their own and do stuff. And you're not going to be there. And they're going to get their heart broken. And they're going to feel that they're not, for a moment, they're not good enough. And they're going to feel sad. And they're going to feel lonely. And they're going to feel insecure. And how they manage through that, how they cope through that is a function of how mom and dad coped for themselves, how they hierarchy feelings, how they marginalize feelings. So if mom and dad are marginalizing this consciously or unconsciously, because they go, I'd rather my child feel happy because I want to look a certain way in front of the other parents. I want a particular image to be out there. I don't care. Like I'm at the stage where I recognize that what allows me to connect with another human being and has me feel most alive is the fact that I've tasted the interesting emotions like heartbreak, like loneliness, like insecurity. And so now when I first have to, I can't try and do that for my kid. I have to first actually authentically be with my own feelings and process them, and then learn strategies to process them and not marginalize them. And then with my child, I can help support them as they navigate their feeling. So there's never a moment where when my child has like a big feeling, let me give you something more practical, and they're feeling it, I go, okay. I go, oh my goodness, what has this amazing, it's kind of like, I almost think of it like a guest that's come to my door, knocked on my door, and I see loneliness. Or I see insecurity and I go, oh, come on in, sit down, put your feet up, eat from the buffet. I want to metaphorically teach that to my children in my own ways, such that they now go, there's something intelligent here. And let's be with the feeling, not in our head. Where is it in your body? Process it there. And then what I do is instead of asking the child a million questions about what happened and how do they feel, which again keeps them in their brain, I share. I use my intuition. I realize that I have a feeling that this child's feeling a bit maybe insecure. And what I do is using my intuition, I might share. This again seems very counterintuitive, but you want to share more than you ask. We've been predisposed to, let's ask the child a million questions. How do you feel? How do you feel about that? What did you do today? I recommend sharing way more than you feel, because when the child hears that mom, you with all of your friends, and all the stuff that's going on in your life, you feel insecure, then the child goes, wow, I'm not some weirdo kid. I'm not some strange alien life form that has this feeling, and I feel like I'm the only one on the planet that feels it. Mom feels it. And then she shared some ideas on what she does in order to actually feel her feelings. And then the child goes, oh, and then he practices it, and you do that, you co-regulate with the child. They're not left alone. And then over time, the child learns to do this for themselves. And they grew up into the world, and they're living in Kenya, and they have this feeling that hits them, and they know what to do. And that was actually the biggest gift. It wasn't signing them up for baseball and soccer and whatever. That was the biggest gift you could give them.
What I want to ask is a little different twist. I've been working with emotions also quite a bit, and I know that there's a tendency to work with painful emotions. How about us as humans acknowledging and getting the best of our pleasant emotions? Do we have any handicaps there as well, or is it a little easier because we want to feel them, so we seek them and we go into them? Or do we do mistakes with the nice emotions, the pleasant emotions that we want to have more of in our lives?
So do we seek out the painful emotions, or do we tend to just live in the world of
I'm just trying to say, ask if we do mistakes with the positive emotions as well, because with the negative, yeah, I get it. We try to transform them. We run away from them. We don't acknowledge them. We do a lot of mistakes with them. But do we do mistakes with the positive emotions as well?
Well, yes, because there are people that feel that, I have to put on a certain persona for people to like me. Like, maybe you're the life of the party. So I have to go and I have to live into this, large than life thing. And maybe you can be the life of the party. But if you feel that egoically I'm attached to this thing where I do, hey, how you doing? And then that is what defines me. And then now I can't go to the party if I'm anything but that. Then yeah, that's being inauthentic to ourselves. And ultimately we will feel unhappy because we'll feel disingenuous, or we'll feel that a boundary has been crossed, or we'll feel resentment. So yes, we can do this again. This comes down to authenticity, but I can't be authentic unless I actually am willing to recognize what I feel. So as I'm saying, no, everything's great, I'm fine. I mean, the running joke in this house is fine means not fine, right? So if I'm putting on airs about positivity and everything's great, I now have to think about what type of relationship do I want to create with another human being. I can tell them about something honest and vulnerable and real. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, thank God. Because I have an experience like that as well. Or I can do what Facebook does, or Instagram does, or maybe Pinterest. But which is I'm going to show you all the happy times. I mean, there's too much studies out there that shows that this actually makes people more miserable because it's inauthentic. We know that life isn't always on a beach in a bikini, or, running around with all the kids are smiling. That's not real life. But we forget that all the time. And then we get caught up in this image, and then we start playing into this image. So what's beautiful is when I see somebody come real, I go, man, that is somebody that has done some work on themselves. And then now they're going, you know what? They have the courage to speak their truth, because I don't know what they're using. For me, I use, before I die, like what I'm trying to calibrate and optimize for is my aliveness. And I define aliveness as feeling the full spectrum of emotion. And so for someone to really love me and understand me, how would that be if they only ever get happy, happy, joy, joy, Rhea? It's like I'm so complicated and so peculiar, then I never really trust that this person actually knows me. So it ends up feeling like this friend that I could have called my best friend even don't actually know who I am. So I want to be radically honest about what it is that I'm feeling. And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And guess what? When I do that, then the other person goes, oh, I'm not, that's what people tell me. People tell me everything. I'm not even their close friend. They tell me all kinds of stories about their life and like shame, things that they feel shame about, because there's something that I think they feel that I'm not going to judge them. And the reason why they feel that energetically is I don't, because I haven't judged my feelings. I'm not making anything that I feel wrong. I go, this is what makes me interesting, that I've got my crazies and I've got my cool bits and I've got all this hodgepodge of every emotion. But I want to have a friend that fully sees me and says, I want to be her friend. Otherwise, I'm living a facade.
So Rhea, when people ask you how do you do you do you have a regular answer, or do you actually change your answer depending on how you really do?
What I do is I pause before I answer the question.
Mm.
I don't just go, yeah, fine. No, no, good. It's a great day. I actually stop for a second. I drop down to my heart because I know that I carry my feelings in my chest. And I actually just do a quick check-in to go, is it expansive and open and wide, or does it feel somewhat contracted? And I try and actually really answer the question. Now, you have to do this with a certain sense of savvy. If you meet the lady who's cashing out your groceries and she goes, how are you doing today? I don't have, it's like, that's not an opportunity for me to get into things that I'm uncovering about myself, right? But I mean, I'm assuming you're speaking to a partner or your child or a close friend or people that are close to you and
Oh,
really
people at
want
work, for example, or
to
people who are
work.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I check in and I go, actually, I notice I'm feeling a little bit anxious today. That's what I say.
Mm.
And I'm just like, and I'm not looking for them to change it or fix it. And most of my friends, my closest friends, they know that this is not for them to try and be like a walking carnival to get me out of it. They recognize that there's nothing for you to do. I'm just going to share a reality with you.
Mm.
And I love when they share that reality. And I have to even notice if my friend tells me that I'm feeling a bit insecure today. Yeah, if they would say that, there is a desire in me to want to remind them of their magnificence.
I
And
know we always want to fix people up, don't we?
yeah, I know it, but that's the key, is I'm just noticing that desire that I got to go and give them all these amazing things about them. And here's what I can do. I can say, I'm with you. You know what, where I really learned this? I lost my mother 4 years ago. And it was probably the biggest traumatic event of my life to lose my mom. And I realized it was the first time like death had hit me that close. And I noticed how people responded and what they said. And I don't need people to tell me she's in a better place. I don't want to hear any of that. There's nothing that can be said because I've just lost my mother. There's nothing that can comfort me. Yeah. I have my own like view and what comforted me, but they could just be with me. Do you have the courage as my friend to be with me as I sit in the fire of my pain, the depths of my despair, and be with me? I mean, I could even cry as I say this because that is the friendships and the relationships that I want. Can you be with me in the fire?
It's beautiful what you are saying, and I want to ask a little bit tricky question. You mentioned that word a few times, that you want to be radically authentic or radically honest, and authenticity has been such a buzzword. A lot of people think have a lot of baggage coming with that word when they hear the word authenticity.
Yes.
And the thing that I've noticed, that almost every person that I talk to says that they are true to themselves, that they are authentic, that they are honest with themselves. And again, it might be just mirroring me, but oftentimes I don't believe in that answer either. And again, philosophically speaking, if that's what they believe, maybe that's fine and that's good enough. But how do you think, do you really know if you are honest with yourself, if you're being yourself, or if you're actually delusional? Because delusion has this peculiar quality of, if you're delusional, you don't know that. That's the essence of delusion, right?
So the body doesn't lie. Your body is not going to lie to you. Your head might lie to you. Your head might go, you're a really attentive, caring, loving person because, it's all caught up in your ego and your image that you want to project. But your body doesn't lie. Your body will tell you the truth. So if you get very connected into somatic experiencing and feeling to completion, you will start to get a window into what's really running the show in a way that nothing else can. So for those people that think they may be doing the work and they're, being authentic, they have maybe the, back of the cornflakes box version of what they think authenticity means. And they're trying to do the check marks in the box of what it looks like from what they've witnessed, or what do you say? in those moments. And sure, they can put on those airs. People that are really connected to their own feelings and authenticity can sniff that out in a second. They can sniff out who's authentic and who isn't. So you can't really fake it for people that are really attuned. You can't fake it for those people. You might be able to fake it for some others, but those that are attuned will smell that out.
Isn't that ironic, fake authenticity?
Yeah, yeah. Well, because it's kind of like the person that can go to the party and they're gregarious and they know how to put on a show and they, I know how to be that person at a party, right? I know how to drum up the energy of the party, but nobody knows inside that I might feel terrified, and that I have like some insecurities, and people would think, oh, she's not going to have it. But I'm like, yeah, but I knew how to play the game in that moment. And that's what I did. I played a game, but I'm also aware, because I like going down the rabbit hole of my feelings, that, yeah, there's actually terror there. And I'm going to dress up that terror into some sparkle. So for those people that are unaware, I can't wrong them. I don't want to judge them. I don't want to go bad you, because on a different time in a different space, that was me on some other area of my life where I didn't grow into understanding my own, what it means to be authentic and what I want out of a friendship and what I want to understand about myself. So I get less, I might go, they're not my people. They're not like my people right now, because what I'm desperate for is realness. And in order to do that, go into your body, because you can't fake it when you're in your body. Your body, it's not like you're going to come up with some answer. Like your body, it's almost like what I call the inner child work. Okay. So I shouldn't say I call it that. I didn't invent that term, but inner child work is where you figure out, where did this, what is it? This is a question I love to ask my little Rhea, is what is it that you need right now? How do you feel right now? What is it that you want right now? And I listen with reverence to that little girl, because whatever comes out of that little girl's mouth is the universe speaking to me. It is my unconscious mind that is unconscious speaking to me. She will give me a download to all the scary places that I don't want to confront. She will give it to me in spades just by watching her facial expressions and her body language and what she says to me. So if I want to get really curious about my little girl and listen to her, I will never be, I can't say I'm never going to be inauthentic. I mean, because I'm a human being and I don't live in any delusion of perfection. However, that little girl will be able to give me a download on how I'm showing up in the world and whether or not I'm being authentic and honest. She doesn't lie.
So you really have to figure out how to talk to that little girl, because I believe that we grown-ups sometimes are filtering even our own desires. Even if I ask, what do I really want? Sometimes the true answer might be like, oh, no, you can't want that. That's not the right thing to want right now. So how do you make the connection with that real, true little Rhea who will not lie to you?
Well, first of all, I have a frame that when this little girl speaks, that this is the universe speaking to me. I hold that frame because I don't know what I don't know. So when the little girl will never tell me something that is a lie. Okay. She's there. So I'll just give you like some background. When I want to connect to my little girl, I can't do that when I'm really triggered. Okay. If I'm really frustratable or upset or having some big emotion, I need to be calm. And then once I start to go from like an 8 out of 10 to probably a 1 or a 2, I connect with her. And then I observe her. I observe her face. I observe her eyes. I'm just watching her as she moves. Is she sprightly? Is she running? Is she like have hands in the air? Like, what is she doing? What is her body language saying? Well, eventually when I get in front of her and I'm trying to connect to her, what is she saying to me? So can I give you an example of this? Okay. So I have a business. We have a business down in the Caribbean. My husband was working. We had 2 kids that we were homeschooling. This was like a lifetime ago, but this was all going on. Lots of balls in the air. And I'm doing laundry. Okay. And so I'm carrying down the laundry to the wash machine. And then literally, I just feel this wave of anger hit me. And I'm so frustrated. And then so what I could have done is just do stompy stomp, mad mom. My husband sees that I'm mad. I'm responsible for everything in the world, like whatever my anger takes me to. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table, and as this anger hit me, instead of trying to blame and shame somebody, I went in and I started to feel my anger. And as I feel it, I go, what's the number? I start getting really granular with it. I have a whole process that I do. It's a bit longer than this call, but a whole process I do to kind of be with the feeling to get me down to a 1 or 2. But here was the interesting part. When I started to notice that I'm 8 out of 10 frustrated, and I started to tap into the sadness behind the anger and maybe even the fear, and then I got myself down to a 1 or a 2, and I connected to my little girl. This was my little girl. She had her arms crossed and she wouldn't even look at me. She's like, you always want more. And I thought to myself, I'm not a wanty person. Like, I don't care about having things per se.
Yeah.
So what is she talking about? I always want more. Mm-hmm. And what she was trying to convey to me was this: Rhea, you are like, your spirit animal is like an octopus, balls in the air, 8 arms. Look at me. Look how many things I can handle. I can homeschool, and I can run 2 businesses, and I can do this, and I can do that. And you know what? She's exhausted. This little girl is exhausted. So what she's basically saying is, do you love me enough? Do I deserve a break? Am I important enough and worthy enough to deserve a break in my egoic attempt to try and be the everything for everybody? And that's when I saw her. Then I started to cry. And I cried because it was so true. I could connect to, this is what it is. It's my desire to have, to whether achieve or control or perfect all of these things, or workaholic in different areas of my life. I noticed how it was manifesting. And so then as I connected with her, I realized, okay, I'm listening with reverential listening. So that doesn't mean that I listen and then tomorrow I go and try and do 1,000 things like I normally do. I go, the person I need to honor before I honor my children even, is that little girl. Because if that little girl doesn't have her needs met, how does she parent the child? She can't. You see, how do I teach my children to honor their feelings and their needs and their wants and their boundaries when guess who's not doing it? Me. So in that moment, I now have to make this the most important work of my life, which means I got to pull new moves, which means I have to go, okay, so husband comes, sees me crying, goes, what can we do? And then I have to let go of some of the control that he's going to do the laundry and the whites are going to turn colored. I have to give that up. I'm going to lose 3 great blouses. I have to give that up. Okay, if I'm not like, a walking entertainer for my kids, got to give that up. And go, what can I do that allows me to feel sane and happy and joyful and my chest feel expansive? That's what I focus on. And that's what I did. And that saved me.
Thank you so much. It's such a beautiful example. I know I'm slightly stretching the time. Do you have a quick answer to that question? And actually, that could be the parting message maybe to people who have joined us. How do you teach people to feel again? And I'm not sure if the person who was asking means how to teach other people. How do you teach yourself?
It's probably, I'm going to guess it's because I see a few questions like that. I don't remember my emotions from my childhood. How do you teach people to feel again? You don't start with the big, it's like if you're going to a gym, you don't pick up 100 pounds on day 1. You start with 5 pounds, right? So every day you're going to an emotional gym. And you start with very small, innocuous things. So how do I feel my feelings? That's the question, right? How do I get in touch with my feelings if I didn't have a childhood like that? You first have to start noticing that you're having feelings all the time. And by the way, every single moment we're having a feeling about something. So I would start with the 5-pound weight. Notice, I don't know, that you thought your husband was going to bring home the milk and instead he brought home almond milk. I don't know, something. And just notice that I had a feeling about it and where is it in my body? And be willing to not go into meaning and story, judgment, shame, blame, make wrong, but be with it, or distraction and doing. That is probably the simplest answer that I can give, is in the small nuanced ways of living your life, start noticing when you're having a feeling. Somebody cuts you off while you're driving, and all of a sudden you think that jerk could have killed me and my family. Notice, instead of just going, people should have their license taken away, rah, rah, rah. Stop for a moment and go, what am I feeling right now? Which means don't go into my head. Where in my body? It's going to come not as a thought. It's going to come as a somatic expression. It feels a little bit, it might, for some of the people listening, feel a little bit strange, because if you're very connected to your body, then it'll be like, what do you mean to get into my body? It does help to have a coach help you through this, though. Because then you can have somebody, it's like listening to a guided meditation, help you get attuned to what's happening in your body while you're having this feeling, or having this experience, sorry. And then you can go, where is it in my body? Then you can explore it with like I love to use this example, like you're an archaeologist, putting on and digging for the bones, like that level of curiosity with the feeling. So you're not, again, this is not a cognitive thing. You're actually wanting to stay out of your head. You want to stay into, so I get into the color, the shape, the movement, the size. I guide my clients that way so that they can or I allow the feeling to flow out of them. Sometimes people grew up in families where their feelings weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to express. So they tend to feel a lot of like heavy energy in their throat. So then we imagine this energy flowing out. And as I guide them through that, they'll notice that there's a physiological change inside of them, that they were like an 8 out of 10 that somebody cut them off, right? And then they now can notice that, okay, I did some deep breathing. I did some what I call regulation techniques, like ways to calm down. And then I go back to the feeling. So remember, there's a toggle. The mind is saying, don't you feel? And the body's saying, please feel. And you have to decide who's going to win. And if the mind wins, then you're not going to feel your feelings, right? You're just going to be in story. But if the body wins, the body is going to give you the epiphany and the jewel at the end of that. And I encourage everyone that's listening to do that work. It is, for me, it's been the most magnificent work that I've ever done for myself.
Thank you. I really love this. Your body will give you the jewel. It's probably my biggest takeaway, but not just that, of course. Rhea, it has been such a enjoyable and interesting, deep conversations. Thank you for being so you, so radically you, as you said. And I traditionally, I want to ask people who are with us, most of the people managed to stay, despite me stretching the time, to leave a heart for my guest. You can leave it in any shape or form. In the comments is very welcome. And those who are going to see in the recording, please leave the heart as well in the comments, or if there is a liking option somewhere. Rhea, you're welcome to enjoy the hearts. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope we get to meet again. Thanks again, and I see you sometime soon, hopefully. Bye.
Bye.